to bring us fully into this moment as we prepare to talk about flowing peacefully on tides of change. So let's just start by bringing awareness to our breath. And bring awareness to the sensation of the air as it passes your nostrils, as it flows through your passageways into your lungs, filling your chest and your belly. And in this moment, set the intention that I am here, I am now, and all is well. Now, many of us have been experiencing a lot of change lately, and everyone I've been talking to has been talking about all of the changes going on in their life, and I've been experiencing the same thing, so we are all in good company. How do we, when there's so much change going on, some of it is small and feels really big, and some of it is very big, and some of it is life-changing. So how do we flow more peacefully on tides of change? One of the first things, as I was, talking to the ancestors about how to help all of us, including myself, to flow more peacefully through this change, I was reminded of years ago when I was going through another life-changing process, a transformation of sorts. The ancestors came to me and started talking to me about non-resistance. And in my human corporeal self, that was illogical. And so I was encouraged to watch Ip Man. If you haven't watched it, I have it on like my checklist mark videos that I watch, Ip Man. And when I was watching, what I noticed was the art of Wing Chun. And with Wing Chun, what I noticed was that when an opponent was coming forward, instead of creating equal or more force to try to resist the incoming energy, what actually worked more effectively was to flow with the energy and then redirect it, non-resistance. And in that non-resistance, what I really admired was that the person practicing this non-resistance remained centered, remained in their heart space, in their body, in the moment, and appeared to be completely fearless because they were staying in their center. And I thought, oh, wow, that's amazing. So one of the things that I've been practicing with the life-changing changes that have been going in my life is this art of non-resistance. And I ask for awareness every day. And this is another thing that I have found personally very beneficial, is to ask a lot of questions. Now, there's those people that don't like that, but that's okay. That's their choice to not like it. I love asking questions. So I ask, what awareness may I have that, if I had this awareness, would contribute, assist, and support me on my highest vibrational path? And then I just let it go and allow those thoughts and guidances and inspirations to come to me and show me what is going to help me. And so as a part of that process, then I allow myself to be present in the moment, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's painful. And I watch my breath to see if I'm breathing shallow or if I'm breathing peacefully. I watch my body to see if my energy is contracting, which means that it's afraid and it's trying to be protective. And I watch my energy to see if it's remaining soft and open. And so when I allow myself to have that awareness of what's going on with me physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, the power that that creates for me is to have awareness in the moment when I am becoming contracted, when I am feeling unsecure, unsafe, and make choices. Another superpower, choices. We all have them. Even when we say, I have no choice, you have a choice. My point of view. So back to non-resistance, what I watch for is my body contracting? Is my energy contracting? Am I starting to breathe more rapidly and more shallow? And those are all symptoms of the stress, the insecurity. And then I make that choice and I breathe. And I let myself open back up. So instead of resisting the energy of the moment, instead of resisting what's uncomfortable in that moment, instead of resisting the change that I have created in my life, then I can flow through it more peacefully because I'm no longer resisting. I can breathe. I can allow myself to be the awareness of the moment. And in doing so, that's truly a gift, not only for myself, but for the other person, potentially, if they choose to receive it. Because what I'm doing is I'm allowing that space so that instead of reacting out of fear, I can slow down. I can respond out of my heart, which is where my true identity lies. So this power of breathing is a very big part, asking questions, but then breathing, because I call it a human condition. We have been conditioned as humans to respond rapidly. Think about it. When we enter school, public school, private school, doesn't matter. When we enter into the school system, and potentially before then, but I'm going to focus on this. What happens? We began being asked questions, and the winner is the one who answers correctly first, right? So we've been conditioned through our lives to, in a situation, respond rapidly, respond correctly. Man, that puts a lot of pressure on us, right? We're human. So what I've chosen to do is give myself grace and be human and give myself time and patience. And instead of responding or reacting, I should say, instead of reacting immediately, choose to take a breath and respond. Now, do I get it right every time? No. Scorpio. Sometimes it's that instant reaction that has been ingrained for my almost 60 years. So those are those moments where I also give myself grace. When I realize, ooh, I just reacted. That was not characteristic of who I choose to be. It's not my true self. It's not in alignment with my true self. Then I say, I forgive you, Rae. And we're going to just be the best version of ourselves we can in the moment. And we're going to move on. And if I owe this person an apology for reacting the way I did, I'm good with that. Because hopefully they understand that I'm human because I do. So asking questions, using your breath to pause just for a second. When you're in that moment of turbulence, whether it's internal or external, because let me tell you, a lot of internal turbulence goes on. So whether it's internal turbulence, whether it's internal tides, or whether it's external awareness, without judgment, just accepting that this is what's going on. And then breathing, getting back into that center, not resisting, not being outside of who I truly am. That brings my power back into my heart. That brings me back into my center so that I can then respond out of who I truly am. The breath can also be used as a release tool if or when we're in a moment that is very stressful, whether it is driving on the highway and somebody cuts you off and nearly rolls your car, near accidents, conflict with family or friends, anything that brings on a lot of stress. There is something that is now coming more to light. There's been research on it for decades, and it's completing the stress cycle. And so the breath, not only can the breath allow you to come back to your center and come back to your true self so that you can respond to the world as you would choose to, instead of reacting out of fear, but it can also be used to release the stress. So the breath is very, very powerful. And one of the most powerful things it does for us is it gives us that capacity to be present. Because when I am thinking about what just happened in order to get here, what is going to happen after this, did I get everything packed into my briefcase, blah, 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 right? When I stop all of that internal chatter and I just focus on my breath, and you can try it right now if you want to. Now I can be here and now. And it feels so much better than being stressed out over what was or what could be. The next thing that the breath does for you is it gives you space to have awareness, because there's a lot of physiological things that I could get into about how the body responds to that stressful moment. And it's all good information, don't get me wrong, and I love research. But for the sake of time, what that breath does for you, as well as bringing you back to the present moment, is it gives you that space to have awareness, because now I'm not reacting out of fear. I'm calm, I'm peaceful, I choose to be in my heart and operate from my heart. And that allows me to have awareness of the situation. Maybe that person who just cut me off in traffic just found out that they have a loved one dying, or a child that's been injured, and they are panicked and they're on their way to the hospital or wherever. Maybe that person that I'm in conflict with in the moment is just really in a fearful state, and they're lashing out because of their own internal pain. And so I can have awareness because I've taken that pause, because I've taken that breath, because I've brought myself back into my heart. Then I can allow myself to have that awareness that there's more going on than just this moment, and that this is just a moment. And I get to choose how I interact with this moment. Another big component for me on these flowing more peacefully through tides of change is non-judgment. And because I know how the psyche works, I flip that from non-judgment to acceptance and allowance. And so for me, the difference is this. It's the energy behind the words, because for me, from the time I was born, I see everything as energy. And I had to learn to translate that into the things that most people see so that I could communicate. So for me, the energy behind non-judgment is less empowering than the energy behind the words acceptance and allowance. Acceptance being, I accept myself in this moment and I allow myself to be. And I accept you in this moment and I allow you to be what you choose. And when we accept and allow ourselves, it creates the capacity for us to accept and allow other people to make their choices, to be who they choose to be. And when we do that, we are more capable. We've created space for ourselves to really embrace loving kindness and compassion. There's a Sanskrit word that I adore, and I may not say it properly, but this is how I've always said it. Maitri. It's Maitri. Yes, Maitri. And I love that word because I love that word. Love has been so, in my opinion, diluted, and there's so many forms of love. And for me, there's unconditional love, but growing up, I didn't learn what that meant. I had to learn that later in life. So for me, Maitri is that, because Maitri, roughly translated, means loving kindness, compassion, love without expectation of outcome, love without clinging or needing or desiring anything other than to love. And so in this space of acceptance and allowance, it really creates a capacity for me to have that kind of love, that Maitri, that compassion, which in my experience creates peaceful change. Not always for those who have chosen to have a different experience, but at least for me. And that's who I'm in charge of. I'm in charge of me, and you're in charge of you. And isn't it lovely when we allow ourselves to embrace our power and be that which we choose to be? Another component for me, at least, with flowing more peacefully in these tides of change is to allow myself to come back to the energy. So one of the things that I've noticed, whether it's me or whether I'm working with a client or a friend, one of the things that I've noticed is we get in our heads, another human condition, at least in the Western Hemisphere, living primarily in our heads. And in our heads, nothing wrong with that. When we're in our heads, however, what we do is we focus on logical, analytical, and this is if we're not in a stressful situation, because in a stressful situation, that prefrontal cortex shuts down. You've heard the term, you are not thinking in your right mind. It is true. When someone is stressed, their prefrontal cortex shuts off, and guess what, honey? The prefrontal cortex is where the logical, analytical, and reasoning parts of our brains are. So when we choose to jump into that stress pool, we shut down half of our brain, if not more. And we go into the amygdala, which is it's called a lot of things, but for me, that is the emotional part of the brain. It is fight or flight, survival. Do I eat or be eaten, basically? So that's the part we're operating out of when we're stressed, when the cortisol is high in the body. That's where we are living. It's no wonder we're having problems making peaceful choices in this change when that's our choice. So having the awareness of what's going on really gives us that superpower to make different choices. And so then when we have that awareness, then we can choose to breathe. Then we can choose to not resist, but to allow and accept. We have the power then to stay here in our heart and interact with our life out of that space of Maitri, that space of loving kindness, loving awareness, and compassion. It also allows us to be in the present moment. And only if I'm in the present moment can I check in on the energy. Only if I'm in this space, because I'm me, I can do it even when I'm stressed, but it's not as effective and it's not as much fun. So all these choices empower me then to feel into the energy of the moment. And what is the energy of the moment? Is that person who's lashing out, projecting? Of course they are. That's a whole other podcast. But having that presence to feel the energy, then you can see that they're pushing their stuff onto you because they're afraid. And that allows you to, yet again, make more choices. Do you stay around and allow it? I don't. That's not a life I choose to experience. So I make choices that benefit in that moment, but I'm making those choices by checking the energy. Did I feel my energy close up? Then I'm not feeling safe. Did I feel their energy become forceful? Then they're not being respectful. And so when we feel into the energy, is the energy coming in fear? Is it love? When I'm checking into my own energy, am I in a space of fear in this moment? And if so, what do I need? What do I require? What do I desire to move from that space of fear and return to my space of power? That gives me the choice. Again, I love the superpower of choice. That gives me then the choice to either proceed in fear or to step off, shift my energy, come back to my heart space, come back to my true identity, and operate out of love. And we all have these superpowers. And we're all going through this. So whenever you're feeling like you're going through stuff, especially if you're feeling like you're going through stuff alone, just remember, we're all going through change. The only constant is change. I don't remember who quoted that, but it's a quote that I love. And for me at least, the power of going peacefully through the change is to remember that change is like tides, which is why I created the title I did. So change is like a tide. Thoughts are like tides. Emotions are like tides. And if you've never been to either a large lake where the water moves a lot, or to the ocean, which is even more fun, in my opinion, when you watch the waves, what you notice is that they come in, and especially at the ocean, they come in, and at times, high tide, at times they can really be large. Northern Australia coastline, gorgeous. And some of those tides can get really high. And then sometimes the tides are low, and they'll come in and they'll just softly, gently roll. So our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, and the changes in our life, regardless of what the change is, every single day we experience change. A lot of times we just don't think about it. So we are masters of change. We just forgot that. We are powerful. So when you're thinking about the changes that are going on in your life, one of the things that's been helpful for me is to remember these tides. And in one moment, the tide that's coming over me may feel like it's a little wave, and I'm just going to like lay back and breathe and look at the sky and play with the clouds and enjoy the sun. And I'm just going to let that wave just carry me. And then sometimes they feel like a rip tide, and you feel like you're literally being pulled under. How am I going to breathe? Am I going to survive? And the answer is, that is your choice. That is your superpower. In those riptide moments, do I choose to give myself grace? Do I choose to allow myself to breathe and be in the moment, even when it's painful? Do I let myself be there, be present, be allowing and accepting? Do I allow myself to feel the energy and feel if I'm operating out of fear or empowerment? Do I give myself the grace to just be the best version of me in that moment? And if not, why not? Why not? Because each and every one of us are divine, sovereign, beautiful souls. And each and every one of us absolutely has the power to live in that part of our being, even in this human form. So before I sign off, let's take just a quick moment again and check in on your breath. Is it soft and organic? Is it smooth and peaceful? And where is my focus? Is it over here? Is it over there? Or is it right here? Until next time, I wish you so much peace in your journey. and know that every single day I am sending out Maitri across the Ethernet from my heart to yours. Namaste. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.